I looked at all of the economic indicators, took some notes, and oh my gosh, I decided I was not going to talk about that on Easter weekend. I decided there's an entirely different topic that energetically feels so much better right now. Yes, the economic forecast looks ugly, but we need to talk about financial resurrection. What do I mean by that? I mean, when it looks like people are down and out, I have been there myself. If you know my story around the Great Recession, that's also for another video, when I lost everything, including my own home, in the perfect financial storm. The Great Recession wasn't so great for me. However, I want to share about some of the best known entrepreneurs that became huge successes and big names, that they encountered challenges and failures and they rose above those and went on to great success. Why am I sharing this? It's because we need to remember that the economy doesn't have to be your economy. Now is the time to recognize our role as creators, both collectively and as individuals and in our own household. Because if we just surrender, everything to external circumstances, we are in for a very rough ride. And because some of the systems that are collapsing are not stable systems, some of that may need to be rebirthed. Some of that may need to fail so that something better can be built in its place. However, I'm going to share these stories that I think, if you don't know the history of some of these people, it may give you inspiration and hope for what it is that you can create. I'm going to start with P.T. Barnum. He went bankrupt right before getting into the circus business at age 61. His famed American Museum burned to the ground, and it was actually the third fire that had happened, and it was the Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus that rose from the ashes. Henry Ford began the Ford Motor Company after several business failures, after having trouble getting financiers, and finally he built America's largest car company while also raising the standard for worker pay and conditions. And he famously said, whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. Let's talk about Walt Disney. His first business, Laugh-O-Gram, was an initial success, but then it was forced into bankruptcy. He moved to California, moved to Hollywood to become an actor. He failed at that. And then he got a job. He was managing a team of animators and created a project that really began to take off as a big success. He took the train out to New York to renegotiate for better terms, because here he was creating this profitable project, and found out that his employer had basically stolen his idea, stolen his team, and offered him a pay cut. He said no thank you. He left the company, he left New York, took the train back to California, and it was on that train ride that he created Mickey Mouse. Sarah Blakely, the youngest female self-made billionaire in the world, Sarah Blakely, founder of Spanx, she sold fax machines door to door for 7 years before she started her company. It was during that time that she got the idea for Spanx. It took her 2 years to launch it, an incredible amount of grit. Her story is amazing. And 1 year into launching it, she was so discouraged, she was just ready to quit. And she prayed and said, okay, God, I need a sign. I need a sign if I'm going to keep going. And that same day, she turned on the TV and watched Oprah Winfrey talk about how sometimes she would cut the feet off of her pantyhose and put them underneath her clothing as her own homemade shapewear, which was exactly how Sarah Blakely got the idea for Spanx. At that point, she could not be stopped because she knew that was an inspired idea. There was also, let's see, more names. James Cash Penney ended up in a sanitarium during the Great Depression because his business, not only his JCPenney stores were like almost destroyed, that business, because of the Depression, but he also had a couple of other large losses. He was board member of a bank and had to pay billions of dollars of his own money when the bank failed. That was before FDIC insurance. And he recovered. He went on to build what was one of the most successful store franchises of the 20th century. Conrad Hilton grew up working in his immigrant parents' general store, and part of that had been converted to 10 rooms, to a small 10-room hotel. As a young man, he worked hard, worked his way up, was able to get financing. He decided he wanted to buy a bank. And in the last moment, that deal fell through. The person he was negotiating with reneged on the negotiation. The deal fell through, and he left the signing, the escrow signing, walked across the street into a bar or a tavern that also happened to be a hotel that was for sale, and ended up getting inspired to purchase that. That was the first of his Hilton hotels. He also lost several hotels during the Great Depression, but he moved forward step by step, was able to buy those hotels back. I mentioned Oprah Winfrey. She grew up in a very poor family, was abused as a child. Her grandmother raised her because her teenage mom was not prepared to have a baby. She got her college degree on a scholarship, went on, of course, to become an enormous success, one of the most respected entrepreneurs and philanthropists. But even she had her setbacks. Her first big, in 1998, she produced this, put tens of millions of dollars into producing this blockbuster movie, Beloved, and it was a box office flop. She didn't act in another movie for 15 years. It hit her hard. But of course, entrepreneurs are resilient, and she went on to build even greater successes. If you're familiar with the Chicken Soup for the Soul book series, some of the best-selling books in history, Jack Canfield and Mark Victor Hansen were turned down by every major and most of the minor publishers. They were only able to publish that after they agreed to literally buy a whole bunch of their own books. And I know that sometimes, I think they were both in the movie The Secret a number of years ago, and that movie got criticism for, oh my gosh, this is just magical thinking. You're going to think about your goals and, driving the car and having the success, and then you're going to achieve it. But if you look into the history of any of those speakers that were in that film, including Jack Canfield, they worked so hard. Like, they were so full of grit and creative ideas. I remember him describing, some of their very first early book signings, and he walked through a mall with balloons and handed out the balloons and told these strangers, oh my gosh, there's going to be this book signing in the bookstore, starting in 20 minutes. And they didn't realize that he was the author, but they were just unstoppable. He every single day worked on that project until it succeeded, after being told no again and again. Jamie Kern Lima, one of my modern day heroes. She was once a Denny's waitress. She bagged groceries and at Safeway during her college years. She went on to become like a news anchor, but her complexion, she had rosacea and hyperpigmentation, and it was difficult to cover with makeup, and she left that and created It Cosmetics in order to solve her own cosmetic or her own complexion problems, and wanted to grow that, wanted other women to have this product. She was told no again and again and again. Her book, Believe It, is absolutely well worth listening to. Very inspirational. She was told no so many times by distributors, by investors. One investor told her when she asked why, because he had seemed interested, but then he told her no. And he said, "I don't believe that women will buy makeup from someone who looks like you." Ooh, ouch. He believed that she was a little overweight. She did not have the, she did not, she's a beautiful woman, but she, doesn't look like a supermodel. And, but she was resilient. She had tried for years to get on QVC, finally got her break on that, became QVC's #1 beauty brand within a few short years, kept growing that business, eventually sold It Cosmetics to L'Oreal for $1.2 billion. So whatever it is that you are going through in terms of challenges, whatever we are going through collectively, it is through creativity, it is through resourcefulness. I believe it is Tony Robbins who says there's never a lack of resources, only a lack of resourcefulness. And I know there's a lot of fear out there right now. It's not unfounded. The systems that our financial systems are not healthy. They're not sustainable. And yet we have this ability to create. Wealth is really not the digits or the dollars in a bank account. It is our ability to give and receive, to give value, to receive, to create a life that is sustainable for all. And in spite of the challenges, when we focus on that goal that we want, and we keep moving forward and maybe asking for that inspiration, that Sarah Blakely asked for, looking for creative solutions, uniting with other people who are forming creative solutions. We may go through a tough time, but I believe that financial resurrection for us, for you personally, and for us as a society is absolutely possible. And by the way, if I'm new to you, I'm Kate Phillips with Total Wealth. I invite you to download my 22-page guide, Breakthrough to Abundance, the 4 reasons you're stressing over money and how to break the cycle forever. I've got that down below and pinned in a comment and in the description. Check that out. And my belief is that personal growth and financial growth go hand in hand. I am also an advocate for us, especially for women, to be learning about finances and the economy, and not just, Wall Street. Wall Street has its own agenda, and we need to not delegate our power over. We need to take our power back, be involved in our own prosperity, whether that is redefining prosperity for ourselves, changing our strategies, creating and collaborating with others. Amazing things are possible. So this is Easter weekend. Happy financial resurrection to you whenever you are listening to this. We can believe in second chances. We can believe that there is hope. And I wish for you that I know that you are powerful, prosperous, and free. Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.